Hello and welcome to the Punter, the show that likes to keep you up to date with all the sports betting action across the sporting calendar. On today's show, we once again delve into the Olympics, some prestige finals coming up in just a short time tonight. We'll be talking football as well. Mark Langdon of the Racing Post will be joining us, and we'll be talking RP Pull-Out. The Racing Post, of course, doing the honours as they always do at this time of year, predicting all of the divisions, and we'll get Mark's tips and reasons behind his selections. We've also got time for golf as well, plenty on today's show. I'm pleased to say that Scott Ferguson is joining me in the studio. Scott, how are you doing?
Good evening, Dan. Very well, thank you.
Good. We're going to talk Olympics very shortly indeed. This is something close to your heart and hopefully something that you've been making some money on over the course of the last couple of weeks.
We've been making a meagre little earnings so far, but there's plenty more to come, including some good aspects tonight.
Is it difficult when it comes to odds compilers and indeed for punters, because we don't get stuck into athletics that often in the punting calendar, do we?
That's the best part of it. Athletics and swimming, they're my two sort of loves at the Olympics and World Championships. They only come around once every couple of years. So it's not like football, it's not like racing where it's day in, day out, and the bookies know every single move. If you do your homework and not just the obvious, looking at heats and semis times and this year's personal best, you look at, go back a bit further, you can get some great prices.
So there are some mistakes from odds compilers, we're saying?
Yes, I wouldn't call them mistakes to let them get off with a palpable error, but certainly pricing things up at 10s when they should be 5s and 6 to 4 when they should be 4 to 6, that sort of thing.
Plenty of finals, as we mentioned, coming up tonight, so let's delve into one or two of the markets. First of all, we're going to talk long jump and the women's long jump. What are your thoughts on this one,
Scott? Well, Brittany Reese is a favourite. She's around sort of the evens, 5 to 4 mark, depending on where you shop. She is the standard. She's got the top 2 jumps of the year. However, in qualifying, she failed her first 2 and she just scraped through. Now, if she shakes that off and comes out and does her best, she wins easy. She jumps 7.15. No one else is going to beat her. If this is a long jump at an elite event, rarely do they set PBs. Okay, it's who's got the nerves. But you only need one jump. He's someone that can just steadily goes along at 6 metres 80. Like there's Nazarova, Miranchuk, Ivanova, Sokolova. They're going to set a standard around 680. It's going to need Reese to jump 7 metres, possibly even Deloach, who actually I like. She's going to around the sort of 7-8 to 1 mark. And then there's the Brit Proctor, who's in there with a chance as well, who's been setting PBs lately. Reese, I'd go against her at 5 to 4. I just think it's. I'd rather have the field going for him. It's a decent field. He'll go. It's not going to be a rubbish standard. The members are pretty ordinary standard, which allow Greg Rutherford to win. That by all means the gold medal, but he's not Mike Powell, Bob Beeman or Carl Lewis class. This is a decent sort of field, and the standard will be fairly high. Reese will have to be right up at her best to win this, I think.
Reese has to be up to her best to win it. Let's see how the market shapes up. Scott was talking about Reese being around about even money 5 to 4. Let's get to Chris Graham. Chris, how do we bet on the women's long jump?
Yeah, well, it really is all about her, Dan, as we've mentioned. She's been nibbled at all day. She went off odds on before the qualifiers, but she pushed it to about 11-8. But she's been nibbled at all day. She's about 5 to 4 here at the moment. She's getting shorter and shorter. It really is about her. Can she hold her nerve? She is the girl for the big occasion. She won the World Championships in 2009. Won the World Championships in 2011. Best 2 jumps of the year, as Scott says. But something just wasn't right in the qualifiers. She failed her first 2 jumps and then sneaked through with her third and final one. So that's the conundrum us punters face tonight. Are you with her or against her? Nazarova here at 9 to 1, the second favourite. The third best jump of the year, Nazarova. And she's been in good form and set a decent jump in qualifying. But it really is whether Brittany can hit us one more time with another gold medal winning performance. That's the conundrum.
One more time for Brittany, maybe. So if you're looking at this event, you say Reese is worth taking on. Would you just lay Brittany Reese on the exchanges perhaps, or would you look maybe to bet 1 or 2 of the others?
I'd lay a unit on against Reese, and probably just to try and double up and get a jackpot, have about half a unit on Deloach at best price there. But if you lay the favourite, you've got 4 or 5 really good jumpers there that are in the market.
When it comes to events, and you've mentioned this already, it's an event where you don't necessarily have to go to those big jumps every single time. You've just got to do one on the night to get it right. So I've got my list of top jumps over the course of the year, but it's not exactly meaningless, but it's different, isn't it, when it comes to an event?
It is. The pressure's on. These Diamond League events, they get paid plenty of money, etc. And if they don't win, they don't win. It's all about that on the night. This is what they've been aiming for years. Setup is they've got there's 12 jumpers, they've got 3 jumps, and then the best 8 go through to the next round. If they muck up the first 3, they don't move on. Okay, so the pressure's on to get into that 3, and then they get those first 3 jumps, get one of those right, and then go on to the next stage. And fluctuating odds in running can change a hell of a lot. There's been some massive overreactions on the exchanges in these. And also one important thing, if you're training and running, when it goes to the second part, when they extend for another three jumps, they change the order around, so the best person goes last at that stage.
We'll look out for that a little bit later on. Also, tonight we've got the women's 400 metres hurdles. Now, for me, surely we've got to take the times into consideration, what they run in the qualifiers, the heats for this, don't we? How do you see this event?
You do, but this is my bet of the night. I love this one. Natalia Antioch is the clear favourite here. She ran 53.33 or something in the semis. She looked to me to be going flat out. Lucinda Demas was fairly easy in hers. She ran 54.02, I think. In her semi, she won it. It's not like swimming. It's not all about best times. It's first 2 go through, then next bests, a couple of next bests. Now, if you go to the hard research here, in the head-to-heads in finals, Lucinda Demas leads 6-1 against Antioch. Okay, in Daegu, she went 53.8 in the semi to 52.5 in the final. Set her world-leading best time, set the PB. She's got a history of taking a second or more off for the finals. Okay, whereas Antioch, I don't think, has got a great deal. That was her best time for 2 years. Her PB is 52.98, or just inside 53. I don't think she's got much left in the tank, much left to improve. Lucinda Demas, she can get sort of better than 2-1. I think she's a great bet, whereas Antioch's sort of 8-15, that sort of round. That's a shocking price.
Antioch is odds on. Let's get to Chris Graham. Chris, what do you reckon, 400 metre women's tonight hurdles?
It's just great getting all this information for Scott, it really is, and it's nice. I've been thinking the same thing, so to hear from an expert that he kind of agrees with it, it's very satisfying. Huh? But Antioch, dominated the season so far. She's actually quite old, really. She won bronze in the 2004 Olympics in Athens, and but a couple of other bronzes in previous World Championships. But we saw with the men's 400, if you did well in 2004, you could do well in 2012 as well. So that could be a wee omen. But she's dominated the season, really, and she's dominated the heats and semis in this particular event. But Demas here, like we said, she won the World Championships last year, beating Antioch. How much will that affect her? That is the confidence boost she needs. Demas, not Shaka Demas, of course, from Shaka Demas and Pliers, but that's by the by. But Demas, she won the World Championships last year. She beat Antioch, and at 13-5, I think that's a reasonable shout.
13-5, top price, about the second favourite when it comes to the 400 metres hurdles. Let's move on to the women's 200 metre funnel, because we've got an extremely short price favourite here. Surely, Alison Felix is not going to get beat.
She's like Frankel. She's, considering who she's against, she's up against Richards Ross, who won the 400. She's up against Shelley Ann Fraser, Carmelita Jeter, and Veronica Campbell-Brown. It's a phenomenal field, and she's going to win it by 6-7 metres.
Is this her specialist event, the 200?
Yeah. She didn't feel like... She normally does 2. Previous year she's done the 200 and 400. This year she tried to have a go at the 100. She made the final but wasn't competitive in that. But she is phenomenal over 200, and she will win it and win it comfortably. It's a Frankel bet if anyone follows that.
Yeah, Frankel was 1-20, I think, the other day at Goodwood. And as far as the favourite's concerned here, Chris, 8's on, something like that. Can we see her getting big?
Well, she wasn't 8's on yesterday, that's for sure. I think she was about 4-9. To win yesterday, so the money's been piling in after a dominant semi-final stroll, really. But I obviously couldn't back at that price. I think there are other options, but she deserves to be favourite, that's for sure.
Deserves to be favourite, 1-8.
Was it without Felix Market at a few bookies?
Okay, so if it's betting without, what do we like?
Richard Ross. I thought she came home quite nicely to pip Fraser Price in the semi, and she's probably second favourite in that. Jeter's the outsider, and the other 3 are quite close. But I think it's about 5-2. You get on that.
Let's move on to the men's triple jump. The final is tomorrow. Obviously ahead of the Olympics, from a British point of view, we were talking about Phillips Drew possibly grabbing to get gold here. Yeah. Let's see if we can get the prices from Chris first of all on this one before we get into that Phillips argument. Chris, how do we price for the triple jump?
Well, Christian Taylor, here we go. Very short price in my opinion here at 4-7. he is the best jumper. He's got the best PB. He deserves to be favourite, that's for sure. But for me, it's just a bit too short at 4-7. We've got the European champion here, Donato, at 14-1. He's in decent form, but it's a man I tipped up at 8-1 a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. I spent a Thursday evening just rumbling through triple jump records for the last year, and I come to the conclusion that Will Clay was the man to back at 8-1. He's a bit shorter now. He beat Taylor in the World Indoors in 2012. He went into the Olympics with the best jump of the year so far, and he took part in the long jump as a kind of warm-up event, and he won bronze. So the man is clearly in form, he's confident, he's feeling good, and for me the gap's too big in the prices here. Will Clay for me at 11-2, guys.
11-2, Will Clay for Chris. Scott, how do you see it?
I certainly think Taylor's worth taking on at the price. That's mighty short. Again, with jumping, it can just be one freak jump. The legendary story of Bob Beeman, he was the erratic guy that's one day he could do something special, and he's come out of Mexico City in the very first jump he jumped 8 metres 90, and then the rest of the guys thought, we can't catch this, so they just had a party. All the pressure was off. That's unlikely to happen here. They're not going to get near Jonathan Edwards' record. But Taylor sort of sets a standard. But they were both at the US trials. US trials form doesn't always come across the Atlantic. Now, some pretty honest sort of guys there: Donato, Clay, Levon Sands, and the Bahamas down the rankings. I'm prepared to take on at that price.
Who'd you go for?
Probably Clay, but Sands I think is going to set a decent sort of mark as well. You know, if someone can get up there and set sort of 17-20, then the pressure's on for the guys to throw at a big one.
Plenty of finals, of course, coming up over the course of the next couple of hours at the Olympic Stadium tonight. But just away from that, what are the best bets can you give us over the course of the next few days that we should be putting our money on?
Well, one sport I've played for many years, hockey. Women's finals are going on at the moment. I really think GB can give it a shake. The Dutch haven't been too impressive. Argentina are up against tomorrow. They've scraped in their games. They play very defensive. Apart from one game they scored a few goals, they haven't done a great deal. The Brits can do it. They just have to tighten up a bit. Crowd support, I think, can get them over the line. It's Argentina. I know the Racing Post tipped up Argentina at evens today, but I'm actually going the other way, picking up the Brits. However, that might go to extra time, so I prefer to lay Argentina in the match with a nibble on the GB to win the whole thing. And one other thing, the marathon swims, the women tomorrow and then the men on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Give us a couple of names.
Kerry-Anne Payne should win and win easy. She's not as far in front as Alistair Brownlee was in the triathlon, but she's clear of those. And Spiros Gianniakos in the men, he'll be sort of about 5-1 mark.
Okay. A couple of names to contribute with then when it comes to the marathon swim. We've got more to come from Scott and Chris, and we're going to be hearing from Mark Langdon of the Racing Post to talk football. Plenty more to come on this edition of the Punter. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter. Still to come, we'll be talking football and indeed USPGA golf. We'll be hearing from Mark Langdon of the Racing Post very shortly indeed. First of all, we talked athletics with Scott Ferguson here in the studio just a few moments ago. We were talking about the women's hurdles over 400 metres. Perry Shakes Drayton was still listed in the betting. Obviously, she hasn't made it through to the final. At one stage, she might have done. There was all sorts of controversy.
There's basically a bit of controversy. She was outside, then a girl in front of her got disqualified, and then there was a protest and one of those trivial little administrative things. If she got in, she was still going to be in the also-rans anyway, so it hasn't made a great deal of difference, hasn't made any difference to the market, basically.
I was going to say she wouldn't have featured towards the top end of the market, whether she was in the final or not.
No, so she would have needed to take a good couple of seconds off what she was doing, and she didn't look right this week, unfortunately. Yeah,
she was quoted as a 40-1 shot, but she's not made it through to the final. That's athletics done with for now. Let's talk football. Pleased to say that Mark Langdon of the Racing Post is joining us. The Racing Post football pullout, of course, came out today. It's always a special day in Punter's calendar because people can get stuck into the RP pullout. And Mark joins me now to discuss his tips. Mark, a very good evening to you.
Hello, you okay?
Yeah, we're very good. How difficult is it to put the RP pull-out together? Because it's a fantastic edition of the Racing Post. Everyone seems to buy it. It must take you guys ages to put it together.
Yeah, thanks very much for the kind words. It's one of those ones we really had to throw it together at the last minute this time around, what with the Euros and then, the Olympics sort of in London as well. So it's probably been the toughest one. We did it in about 10 days. which it sounds like quite a long time, but you've also got to try and get out 10 editions at the same time, on a daily basis as well. So there's been a lot of hard work, not just sort of by the likes of myself who get all the glory with the bylines, but people behind the scenes that have been working late every night to make sure that it comes out as good as ever. And we're really pleased with the final product, and sort of the response I've had has been fantastic. So it's always a sort of special day for us to get it out there as well. And I think the anti-post betting was quiet this year because of the Euros and the Olympics. Hopefully we've given that a kick-start today.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's talk about your main selections. We're going to talk Premier League first of all. I thought that you were going to go for Man City, but you haven't. You've gone for Man United. Tell us why.
Yeah, I just felt that, if you're looking for the most likely winner, I would say it's Manchester City, but at 13-10 and 13-5 respectively, I just felt United are not as far behind City as what the prices would suggest. That they matched them over the course of a campaign last season, only losing out on goal difference in injury time. And if you have a look at it, United, I think, are better this season. Vidic missed nearly all of last campaign injured. I think, you have a look at Anderson and Cleverley played sort of 10 games each. Kagawa's a massive signing from Borussia Dortmund. I'm expecting United to go in for a striker. I think that a lot of newspapers are now suggesting that sort of deal for Robin van Persie's closing in. If you have a look at the goalkeeper situation, this time last year, of course, they were bedding in a young foreign goalkeeper in De Gea who had a rocky start, there's no doubt about it, but by the end of the campaign, United kept 20 clean sheets, so they weren't that far behind City. City, I felt, had the rub of the green in terms of injuries. 7 of their players started at least 30 Premier League games, and if you look at sort of the key parts of that City team, your Company and Lescott, behind that they've got absolutely nothing as far as I'm concerned. Savage was a liability whenever he played. Kolo Toure's he's not as good as what he once was, and I'm surprised really that City haven't gone out and really stamped their authority all over this division, which I felt they had the capabilities to do. They've certainly got the finances to do it. As yet they haven't done so. I always think with a title-winning team, you need to build, because you want to freshen things up. You don't want to be going in with the same squad. And so far, Manchester City is the only team in the Premier League yet to sign a player. That could change, of course, by August 31, and they could have all sorts in, but by the end of August. But for the time being, I just think that United are capable of pushing City close again.
Mark, stay with us for a second. Let's get the latest prices when it comes to the Premier League. We can go to Chris Graham, who's got the news regarding the top of the market.
Absolutely. Guess what I'm reading tonight, that's for sure, definitely. I actually was betting on what Mark would select as his main tip last night on Twitter. I hope somebody saw that. And everyone said he'd tip Man City, but Man United were my favourites. So I wasn't too surprised to see this morning that he'd backed Man United, purely because the reasons he says, and I completely agree with him, is the price, the difference in price. United, they've got Vidic back. I think that's absolutely crucial here at 5-2. And Man City, 5-4. That's the shortest price a team will kick off a season for 5 years, since Chelsea went off about 4-9 back in 2006-07, when of course they got beat by Manchester United. So Man City, the shortest price for about 5 years. Man United here at 5-2. We must mention Liverpool here right at the bottom, 40-1, because one man went into a William Hill betting shop yesterday and had £22,000
He must be mad.
On Liverpool. 20 is crazy. 22 grand each way on Liverpool. William Hill have had to cut the price to Liverpool to 16-1. Is that guy crazy or what?
No doubt about that. I think I can find £20,000 to do something else with about Liverpool. Scott, just briefly, how would you tackle the Premier League this year?
I wouldn't go in too early. I'd be looking to trade on the exchanges. Basically, I'd look in advance. Okay, you'd look a few weeks in advance and say, right. Now I haven't looked at the schedule at all, so don't hold this is gospel. But I'd say, right, Man United, they've got 6 winnable games to start off with. Right, their price is going to plunge. Back them now. Chelsea, they've got hard games away in the next 3 weeks. Their price is going to drifts. So lay it now. Expect to plan to back it in 4 weeks' time. That sort of thing. So you just look ahead at the schedule, anticipate what they're going to do and what the market's going to do, and trade accordingly and get a nice little green book.
Let's bring Mark back in. Mark, you talked about City and United a little bit further down. We note, and many in the office note with interest, that you've put Newcastle ahead of Spurs in your predictions. What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of people that believe Newcastle will, blow up this season, having done so well last year. I'm always looking to sort of, look for reasons why that would be the case, and I can't really see any natural reason why Newcastle will suddenly get any worse. I thought, for most of last season, everybody was under the anticipation that sooner or later their bubble would burst, and it never really happened. They were fighting for a top 4 position right until the last day of the season, eventually missed out. But I look at them and think, are they any worse, really, than Tottenham, who look like they'll lose Modric and have, not re-signed Adebayor? Are they any worse than a Liverpool team that finished 8th last season? I mean, Newcastle's first 11, and this could be the key. They've got the Europa League to deal with as well, but there's no guarantee they'll get, that far in the competition. I think if you look at Newcastle's first 11, it stands up really, certainly to the likes of Liverpool and Spurs. I think Krul is one of the best young goalkeepers in Europe. I mean, you look at Colaccini at centre-back, done brilliant things last season. Kabay and Tiote in midfield, I think they'd get into, the Manchester United team. And then up front, you've got Ben Arthur, Cisse and Demba Ba. So they've got more options than some of the teams that are shorter priced around them. Again, a bit like with Manchester United. If you ask me, who would, if you offered me sort of 5 to 6 Tottenham and 5 to 6 Newcastle in a match bet, I would say Tottenham to finish above Newcastle. But we're not getting those sort of prices. Newcastle have been very. There is a chance that they will blow up. You have to say, the teams can have one good year and then fall away, but I think at the prices it's worth betting that the bookmakers are being over negative, I would say, about Newcastle, because they've got a good manager, they've got a settled side, and the squad is a slight issue, but there are enough question marks over the likes of Tottenham and Liverpool to suggest that Newcastle can at least be fighting for the top 6 and maybe even beating one or two of those sides.
Mark, stay with us for a sec. We're going to get the relegation prices up on screen. Chris Graham's got all the news when it comes to those who could indeed drop into the Championship by this time next year. Chris?
Yeah, always a competitive, enjoyable, exciting betting heat, the relegation market. And for the first time, I can never remember, there's no odds-on shots here. This is I think these prices are to finish bottom as opposed to be relegated, because they're amazing prices, let's be honest. You'd be tucking in right now, wouldn't you? But Reading, I think, about 6 to 5 to be relegated. Southampton around the 7 to 4 mark. The one that I like here, 16 to 1 to finish bottom, 9 to 2 to go down, is West Brom. The reasons I've stipulated many times on this show. I think they're really a yo-yo side if you look back in history. What happened was they got in a great manager in Roy Hodgson. He got them up to mid-table, got them very settled. He's gone now to manage England, of course, and they've got in a rookie, Steve Clarke, who's got a lot to prove for me. And 9 to 2, I think that's a huge price for West Brom to go down. I'm not saying it will happen, but I think, again, it's all about the price here. For me, it should be a 2 to 1 shot. In fact, you're getting 4 to 1, 9 to 2, and for that reason, we just have to tuck in.
Have to tuck in, and those indeed prices to finish bottom, not to be relegated. As Chris was pointing out, I think that there'll be plenty getting stuck into those towards the top of the market, as we sure. Mark, we're going to let you go in a second, but briefly, give us your 3 to go down and why.
Yeah, I think that Swansea are the best bet to go down because, like I just mentioned there with Newcastle, not expecting them to flop now. I think if you have a look at Swansea, there are reasons for thinking they will. The manager's gone. I think 2 of their best loan players last year, Corker and Gylfi Sigurdsson, they're both gone. There's doubts over a number of players who are wanted by better teams. And I think that by the end of last season, sides have worked out how to play Swansea. So I think they're the best bet to go down. I also expect Norwich to go down, but they're no value now. They've been backed off the boards from sort of 4 to 1. So the opening prices were brilliant there. The outsider for me here is Stoke. Scored the fewest goals in the Premier League last season, haven't added that much creativity to their side. And I think that they're the sort of team that got a difficult start. I think they could shorten in the betting. And also, if they lose their confidence early on and their home form doesn't sort of stand up like it has done in previous years, they'll be in big trouble. I'm looking around thinking Stoke are 8-1, and you see other teams that are sort of half that price. And I don't think Stoke are that good a side. You know, they've never finished in the top half of the Premier League, and so I expect them to be around about the bottom six. So if they're around about the bottom six, you have to take the 8-1.
Mark, many thanks for joining us. That was Mark Langdon of the Racing Post giving us his view on the top of the Premier League and indeed the bottom. The Racing Post product is out now. I know it's late on, but if you run down to your newsagents, if it's still open, I'm sure you can still get a copy. It's always a fantastic edition. Now, let's move on to the lower leagues. We've been focusing on Championship, League One, League Two briefly over the course of the last few weeks, but obviously with the RP pull out today, there may well have been one or two price changes. So let's get to Chris Graham, who's got the details of the Championship first of all.
Yeah, only one team that's really popular here, and that is Bolton. 7-1. I think they were about 9-1 about 10 days ago. Leicester City were very much the favourites. That's not the case now. 8-1 Leicester. Of course, they went off favourites last year and absolutely flopped. So Punter's already got their fingers burnt with Leicester City. So that might be the case again. Why the drift is on here. Wolves, question marks here, back into the Championship. First time in a few years. The last time they dropped back to the Championship, they finished 10th. In that league, so they didn't really settle back into the second tier. Cardiff, a lot of people talking about Cardiff this season, the perennial bridesmaids. When will they get up to the Premier League? Will it be this season? A chance of that. And then you've got three different sides here. Leeds at 12-1. Under Neil Warnock, of course. Blackburn, there we go. Blackburn, really interesting one coming down for the Premier League. Big question marks there. Steve Keane still in charge, unbelievable. And then Notts Forest at the bottom here at 12-1. New ownership, but a lot of question marks for me. So there we go, guys. Bolton, really the only team that people are backing.
It's interesting to see Forest at the top of the market there, or towards the top of the market, because I know, Chris, that you tipped them to go down, and they've also been tipped up in the Racing Post to go down as well today. So you are not alone in thinking that Forest could struggle. Yeah, they look pretty short, don't they, at 12-1? I mean, it's strange, isn't it, Scott? Because we always look at sides, Championship and indeed Premier League for that matter. In fact, all the divisions, if there's a little bit of money around, suddenly we want to back them, and soon enough they can be false prices.
Well, there's money in, but you bring in 7, 8, 9, 10 players, and how are they going to gel? You know, the beauty about a team like Swansea last year, they were all together, they gelled. You had a manager who picked the right sort of player to fit in with that particular group. If you just randomly throw in players with mega bucks, it takes years to put them together. Then you have things like egos, and it all goes. You have a look at Man City. It took them a while to get it going, and a master like Mancini to get it right with the likes of Tevez and Adebayor, and work out who stays, who goes, that sort of thing. But it rarely happens unless you've got a massive superiority, like say Crawley coming through at the bottom.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Sometimes you're always taken with those big signings, but it doesn't always work out. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Forest over the course of this season. That's all we've got time for now, but we're still going to keep on the football theme shortly because, of course, we've got Capital One Cup fixtures coming up this weekend. We'll also be talking Arsenal, and will Robin van Persie stay or will he leave, and where will he leave to if he does indeed leave the Emirates? Plus, we'll be talking USPGA Golf, the final major of the season. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter as we endeavour to point you in the right direction when it comes to sports betting. And in this section, we're going to be talking football once again. I think most football punters have been starved of club action. Well, this weekend, the Capital One Cup gets underway. Early rounds, of course. It is the Carling Cup. I'm still trying to get used to calling it the Capital One Cup. It's an interesting competition. It's a competition that some teams, Scott, take seriously. Some teams don't. We've got championship sides in action this weekend. Sometimes it can be difficult for odds compilers, difficult for punters, but you always feel in competitions like this and fixtures like this that potentially there is an angle. It's
very hard to work out what's going on. Now, is this part of the standard pre-season, or is this a new manager wanting to get off to a roll? Like you've got Watford this week and you've got Zola. Does he want to get on fire straight away, or does he think this is a rubbish thing in Italy? We don't worry about these cups. The league's more important than promotion, so I'm not particularly worried about these other things just getting in the way. You've got to weigh those up, and that's why it's very risky taking short prices on clear favourites.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Let's have a look at one or two of the prices, shall we? Because we've got some championship sides in action, and you would have thought the likes of Wolves will want to get off to a good start just ahead of their league campaign. Chris, let's take a look at the first couple of fixtures.
Yeah, these games are taking place on Saturday, and it's a wee bit interesting, the fact that these games are taking place before the actual league season starts. So that's adding a bit extra spice, a bit extra, extra things to think about as you approach it as a punter here. But here we go: Wolves 2-5 to beat Aldershot at 8-1. That's a bit short for me. Wolves, of course, back into the Championship, leaving the glory land of the Premier League. Aldershot, League Two. It's just. You've got to be careful with these Championship sides, how seriously they're taking the event. For me, it would be a swerve at Wolves here, definitely. And you've got Leeds at 8-13 at home to Shrewsbury, a much better price, much more appealing price. But we do know that Neil Warnock doesn't have much affection really for competitions, does he? You know, whenever he played with QPR and Sheffield United, he didn't really play his best side. So again, it's something to be very, very careful of, and you might want to get involved with Shrewsbury at 11-2. So these two matches for me, swerves.
Swerves. I personally would probably lay both favourites. I don't know about you, Scott, how you tackle it. I mean, people say to me, well, if you're laying, Wolves at 2-5, why don't you just back, the away team? Why don't you just, get involved with Aldershot at a massive price? But I'd rather have the draw on my side.
You have the draw on your side, particularly in a cup game, because if they take it easy in the first, they get to a draw, they've at least got the replay there. So you've got two options running for you there.
Let's get to more fixtures coming up this weekend. Chris, do you fancy anything when it comes to Sheffield United or maybe even Watford at home?
I do. I fancy one of these two. I wonder if you can guess which one. Both the same price, which is quite interesting. But Watford 6-10, not for me. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty about Watford at the moment. Zola coming in, he didn't exactly do great things at West Ham. How will, what will the board, the hierarchy be like? Will they demand that he pick the players? I don't know. There's just a lot of uncertainty about Watford at the moment. Wickham back down to League Two. They'll want to create a good impression in this opening game. So Watford, I wouldn't be getting involved with that at all. This is a place I do like though. Sheffield United. My tip for League One glory this year. Very, very unlucky not to get promoted to the Championship last season. This year's League One is a lot easier, I think. It's a lot easier section. I expect Sheffield United to be near the top come May. I expect them to get off to a very good start against the Burton side, who could struggle this year in League Two. So for me, excuse me, I'm getting excited about the Sheffield United bet. For me, Sheffield United 6-10 to beat Burton Albion, the best bet of these 4 Capital One Cup games.
I still can't get used to it. It'll probably take me a few rounds and then it'll be the Capital One Cup, and that's what it'll be. For me, I think I'd lay every single one of those favourites, I must admit. I just don't think that they're going to be that interested at this stage of the season. But we will find out. Speaking of interested clubs, this always comes up with the Capital One Cup, the League Cup. Our team's interested in winning it. But then when you look at the teams that have actually won it, well, recently we've had Liverpool, who are the current holders. Obviously, Birmingham won it prior to that, but they beat Arsenal in the final, who were desperate to win that particular trophy at that stage. We've had Manchester United win, we've had Chelsea win. By and large, it is the top 4 sides, the top 6 sides, when it comes to the business end of this particular final, that usually pick up the silver.
Yeah, when it comes to the business end, it's always worth looking at the Racing Post or doing the work yourself. They'll come out with a nice stat saying, well, actually, you might think it's the roughies get through in this, but it's quite often one that gets through to the semis. I do remember, Wickham, got into the last 4 in this cup. About a decade ago, I think. There's been others that have fluked their way, well, not so much fluke, but got their way through. There have been surprises. This year, now I might be wrong here, but being on a Saturday before the season starts as opposed to a midweek game at the start of the season, managers might take that a little bit differently. This is part of our pre-season rather than, well, hang on, this is just to get out of the way. I don't care about this. So perhaps there's a bit of a change of tactics and opinion by some of the managers.
Let's get the latest prices when it comes to the outrights, because they're always relatively big about the big name teams. Chris?
Yeah, the cream still does tend to come to the top, like you say, Dan. Man City here, 13-2 favourites. They didn't do too well in this competition last year, so it wouldn't be something that would appeal to me. Chelsea have won this competition a lot of times, certainly during the Mourinho era, at 9-1, alongside Manchester United, Arsenal and Liverpool. I guess when you approach this competition, you're looking for a side who maybe finishing just in the top half of the Premier League, who've got aspirations of winning competitions. I guess like Birmingham a couple of years ago before they went down, of course. But so perhaps a Villa or something like that, 25-1 might be interesting, Steve. But it might be an interesting shout. But generally, it is the big teams at the top end of the market. But it's a difficult thing to punt in August, isn't it? Let's be honest. But if it was me, I'd be looking for a kind of mid-table side, like Aston Villa, I guess, to do well in this Capital One Cup.
You still can't get used to it. We just keep saying it, we'll get used to it. Capital One Cup. Villa, who were runners-up just a couple of years ago to Manchester United, of course. And Arsenal have targeted this trophy in the past. They got through to the final against Birmingham a couple of years ago. They were beaten in the final, a mistake by Wojciech Szczesny and Laurent Koscielny very late on, gifted the competition to Birmingham, who were subsequently relegated. Do you think that Arsene Wenger and Arsenal will once again target this? There's so much talk about Arsenal desperate to win a trophy. That season he did start to play first team regulars in the Carling Cup as it was then, the Capital One Cup as it is now. Do you think he might do so again? Do you think Arsenal are going to target this? Or do you think, look, we tried that, it didn't work, let's just do what we normally do, play the kids, we'll get through to the quarters and that'll be it? Yeah,
let's see what the depth's like. The kids are the easy option. If you are too reliant on a particular player, let's say Van Persie, and he disappears or he's at risk of getting injured, then you're going to protect those players. It's just a natural thing, and you just hope you can get through the cushy draw.
Chris, what's your view on Arsenal in the Carling Cup? Do you think they're going to take it a little bit more seriously this time? Do they always take it seriously? What's your thoughts?
I think the predominant thought regarding Arsenal is this trophied out figure. This 7 years without a trophy, it'll be 8. Because no trophies have been settled in 2012, and that I think that's hurting Wenger, it's hurting the fans, it's hurting the club, and they'll want to bust that as quick as possible. So I expect Arsenal to take this seriously, Dan. I really do, and I think what happened at events back in February 2011 when they lost to Birmingham, well, it's still haunting them now. If you remember, they totally tailed off that season after that crushing defeat that Sunday. So I think Arsenal, desperate to pick up any trophy, to get rid of that horrible stat that says they've never won a trophy since 2005.
Of course, when it comes to Arsenal, we always talk about Robin van Persie because we don't know if he's going to stay at the club. Do you think that Arsenal's fortunes are completely linked to Van Persie, or do you think even if he leaves, Arsenal will probably still be top 4 and have a run at 1 or 2 of the cup competition?
They've got the depth, but they just have to work out what they're doing. Take him out. Okay, let's build a team around a more balanced team rather than just all based around this one spearhead. Just get it out of the way, get it over and done with, so they can plan. It's just the longer it goes, if it goes to August 31st, so it's just, there's a few weeks ruined of just willy won't get it over with, please.
Where might he go? He could stay, of course, but there's plenty of speculation to where he may well go if he does leave the Emirates. Chris, who are the teams in for his signature?
This is an absolutely fascinating market. I've been so excited by this market over the last few weeks because we've sold so many different favourites. Man City were 2-5 at one point to be his next club. What happened to that? It was all sorts of, supposedly the deal was done, all ready to go, but for what I'm hearing, he does not want to go out Man City. His first choice are Juventus here at 3-1, but it's whether they can come up with the money, the financial money that will allow him to move to Turin at the moment. That's looking unlikely, and of course it's Manchester United here, 4-9 favourites, as big as 11-2 just 4 weeks ago, 4-9 now. All sorts of rumours on Twitter at the moment. The deal is imminent. It seems it's a 3-horse race. One thing I will say though is if you think this could drag out a wee bit longer, perhaps to the end of August, you could get yesterday, because I noticed it really shook me up, 2-1 on Robin van Persie being at the Emirates on the opening day of the season, and that, folks, is just 10 days away.
Interesting. 2-1 about RVP staying with Arsenal. Who might know what Arsenal could do if he does indeed play with Arsenal over the course of the 12-13 season. That will be fascinating. More to come on the Punter. We're going to be talking golf very shortly. Indeed, we're going to be delving into various markets when it comes to the final major of the season, the US PGA Championship. Don't go away. Welcome back to The Punter, the show that likes to keep you up to date with all the sports betting action. And in our final part, we're going to be talking golf. And just before we get into it, we were talking about the Racing Post football put out earlier today, which is absolutely fantastic. Always is. It's always a day in the diary where everyone buys a Racing Post. But unfortunately today, and I don't know if this is because of the Racing Post football put out, but it's knocked the golf preview out of its usual Wednesday slot to a Thursday. So that scuppered us to a certain extent. Scott's with me in the studio. Scott, it's terrible, isn't it?
It is. Bruce Millington actually explained it on Twitter this afternoon, saying, yeah, sorry about that, but because of the football, our timing, which is a shame, because that's basically where I do, well, 3/4 of my research for it. So because at the moment with the Olympics, there's not as much time. So anyway,
it's an interesting one. Yeah, yes. It will be in tomorrow, obviously, so you can have a look at Steve Palmer's selections or Jeremy Chapman, whoever's doing them this week. We're going to try and tackle one or two bets of our own. We're going to talk outrights first of all. I mean, it's Glory's last shot, the US PGA Championship. That's how it's known amongst golf pundits and indeed punters, because we always try and get the winner of the last major. It's difficult though. Tiger Woods makes the market, but generally, and you're an exchange player, I guess that most exchange players would be looking to get Tiger Woods in the book and maybe lay him, even though he's won a couple of times this
probably
year.
not straight away. He'll shorten. He always shortens. With the exception of years at Carnoustie or something like that, he'll shorten in the market. Around the 10, 11 market price in the market at the moment, there's no great urge to go in. He'll trade 6 or 7 or something tomorrow, and possibly the next day. That's a better time to get involved. I'd personally be looking for 2 or 3 players in the 50 to 100 or even higher sort of market. Just have a nibble on those and just go from there. And then as soon as Tiger shorts, as soon as they start coming in, just take a little bit out and watch them rotate. 'Cause it's going to be a tough course. It's a monster course. The wind's going to be up. Check the weather forecast. Whether it's going to be windy morning, afternoon, what the tee times are, that sort of thing. They don't win majors like Tiger did in that famous 97 Masters. It just doesn't happen. That was a freak of nature, and it will never happen again. Well, not while we're punting anyway.
Chris, let's find out the market, because of course Tiger Woods does indeed make it, but there's plenty you can fancy.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiger, the story here, it's very much replicated what happened in the Open 4 weeks ago. He's just got bigger and bigger and bigger as the event come up. I think he was originally about 7 to 1, 8 to 1 to win this. There we go. Now 10 to 1 now, as big as that. So he went double figure price, and I still think it's too short for me, to be honest. We talk about Arsenal's trophy drought in the last part, 7 years. Woods hasn't won a major now for 4 years, of course. He hasn't won a USPGA for 5 since 2007. So a lot of stats to bust there for Tiger this week. Will he do it? I don't think so, personally. Rory McIlroy, big question marks over him at 20 to 1, of course. Is he the same player as he was last year since he got with Caroline Wozniacki? His form seems to have petered out. Thinking about one other thing, I think. Then we've got Luke Donald at 22 to 1. Again, a guy, when the tough gets going in majors, he ain't anywhere to be seen, Luke Donald. I would not be backing him at 20 to 1, that's for sure. And then you've got these Americans who I definitely would be getting excited about. Dustin Johnson at 25 to 1, and then Jason Duffner. I can't get enough of this guy. I just can't get enough of this guy. He won the Zurich Classic at the start of the year, 2nd in the Crowne Plaza, tied 4th in the US Open, 7th in the Bridgestone last week, in absolutely great form. And of course, he lost in a playoff in this event last year. Jason Duffner, he is hot, man. 28 to 1. That is my shout for the USPGA.
Speaking of Jason Duffner tops the stats when it comes to first round scoring average, and this is another market that punters like to get involved in. It's the first round leader of majors, so maybe we should look at Duffner as well. It's a market that, I don't know, 10 years ago probably wasn't even available, but over the last few years has grown in popularity, because again, you've got to look for a good player, an informed player, but they don't have to deal with the pressure of a back nine and a major on a Sunday.
Exactly. You can have someone who comes out and shoot the lights out, someone gets in before the wind and the weather and stuff like that. It's a very much a weather market for that, and like you say, it's the guy without the pressure, famous, not got an Australian background, so Rod Pampling at Carnoustie years ago.
So, yeah, he led, didn't he, after day one?
Yeah, 66 or whatever it was, then 80 something, and after that, those things can happen, but they can get away with it, and hence I think Tiger's favouring this at 14, so prices go up, but it's more compressed sort of market, and with some decent each way terms out there, I actually prefer to play this rather than the outrights pre-tournament. I'd rather trade the outrights as we go.
Chris, how did the bet for this one?
Yeah, first round leader, Tiger Woods, as you can imagine, 14 to 1 favourite there. tough market. This tough market to really get an angle on. The same players making up the top of the market. I was having a wee bit of research, doing a bit of research earlier on. Sergio Garcia's name popped up quite a few times. In terms of first round leaders in majors the last couple of years. If you can get a bet on him leading in the first round and then no making the cut, I'd suggest that. He's a man very much on the wane, that's for sure. McIlroy as well led majors after the first round, the 2 of the 4 last year, so he's the trend player, I guess, at 28 to 1. It wouldn't really entice me, but if you want a wacky one, Sergio Garcia, I think he's 66 to 1. You never know.
Sergio Garcia at 66. You've got a couple of names you want to throw in the hat?
Yeah, like throwing out 2 or 3 sort of there. So, Padraig Harrington, sorry, around 50s. Charles Schwartzel, 55s, and Sil Jung No. I'll get that right. No's the last bit. I get confused with some of the Korean names. He's around 100s. He's got some talent, and decent each way terms. Paying down a 5th or 6th on this is worth a shout.
Let's wrap it up with top Great Britain and Ireland's player. Chris, it's the usual suspects again towards the top end of the market, I guess.
Definitely much indeed. If this replicates the Olympics, we're definitely in for an interesting 4 days, that's for sure, because the top Great Britain and Northern Ireland have done very well in the Olympics. Will they replicate that in the golf over the next 4 days? Unlikely, you'd have to say. But Luke Donald and Rory McIlroy, 4 to 1 joint favourites here. Lee Westwood, I think he's got a struggle ahead of him this week at 11 to 2. The 2 that I like, Padraig Harrington, 11 to 1, and won this event in 2008. Had great form in the majors so far this year. Had an indifferent open, if you like, but I'd give him another chance here at 11 to 1. And Graham McDowell at 9 to 1. There we go. Graham McDowell, he just loves the USA. He won the US Open in 2010. He was runner-up this year. He excels in the good old USA, and for that reason, it's McDowell for me at 9 to 1.
9 to 1 to be top Great Britain and Ireland. Do you think that those British players can get inspired by what's been happening with the Olympics? Do you think?
Certainly. Anytime you can sort of stick one up and give a bit of ribbing to the Americans, saying you beat him at this, you beat him at that, etc. That's great. The Americans got to dominate about the swimming. The Brits aren't going to care too much, and they'll go on about all these other events they're winning, and then they'll start going towards the pound for pound sort of the amount of money invested, or the population, or the size and stuff like that, which you guys will probably then throw at me about Australia. So.
Yeah, don't go there. And of course, golf is in the next Olympics, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure how, but it is.
I must admit, I just wonder exactly how interested Tiger Woods and co would be on the golf in the Olympics. We will find out, of course, in 4 years' time.
I'm sure he'll be interested. There's all these handballers and volleyball sort of players there. What else? No.
Let's bring it back to the Olympics, because, of course, when it comes to Team GB, they dominate the Sports Personality of the Year awards. Chris, what's your view on this one? Because I know over the last few weeks we've been with Wiggins, then we thought, hang on a minute, Ennis has come along. If Farah wins again, he could be a factor. What's your latest view?
Yeah, it's such a competitive, fascinating heat, and so many candidates, and so many deserving candidates who probably would hit the podium, maybe even win it in previous years gone by. I remember Zara Phillips won it in 2006. What a joke that was, eh? 4 to 9. Brad Wiggins 1 to 8 this time last week. Now just 4 to 9. Of course, that is after Super Saturday's events. Jessica Ennis at 5 to 2. The nation's sweetheart. Everyone fancies her. 5 to 2, and she's definitely going to be a popular pick come December time, when the people pick up the phone and vote online. Andy Murray here at 10 to 1. What if he wins the US Open? Where does that stand him? He's really overcome. The British public have fallen in love with Andy Murray over the last couple of weeks. One name that I like here, who's not even on the list, it's a silly one you might think, but Laura Trott. She's just been, absolutely wonderful. She's really captured the nation, 2 gold medals, and she's very picturesque as well, and she might be a shout around 80 to 1. That's definitely a shout for me. But Mo Farah as well, 14 to 1. What if he wins again? His price will contract, that's for sure. But an absolutely fascinating heat. For me, the best ever sports personality of the year heat.
Lots that you can fancy, certainly. Would you be a layer of the favourite? I get the sense that you might be.
I'd be a layer, last week before Jess Ennis was in there. The thing with this is it's not based on what's happened on performances. It is a phone vote. It's almost Big Brother. Think about the coordinated campaigns that got McCoy and others involved here. If Laura Trott comes in, okay, she's going to steal the cycling vote of Wiggins. She's going to steal some of the women vote from Jess Ennis, etc. Those sort of ones. So you've got.
Okay.
Andy Murray.
Scott, it's certainly an interesting thing to consider. That's all we've got time for on this edition of The Punter. From all of us here, it's goodbye. We'll see you next time.